Councilmember Jameson.
Here.
Toussaint.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Present.
Mayor Richardson.
Here, will you stand with me for the pledge, please? Put your hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First thing, I want to thank you all for being here. It's great to see the public response to the city activities and to learn civics. And June Christians, it's good to see you. And Dick. First is public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct the comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Council. Does anyone have anything to speak about other than the main item this evening? Because I have no speaker slips. Seeing none?
Wait.
Is there someone? Oh. Hazel?
Good evening, council members. After attending the where one buys vegetables on Wednesday, okay, farmers market. A man asked me if it was my car when I was loading it. He probably had a problem with dementia. I told him, let me get the groceries in my car and I'll help you look for your car, which I did. And I also went to, I kept looking, and finally I went to the police department and asked for help. I said I'd be glad to drive to and look in another direction. I was worried because if it gets to 5, then the Visitors Bureau closes. I didn't know what to do with the man. Anyway, after 3 or 4 tries with the police department, they said they didn't handle that kind of thing. Now, if I leave a dog in a car, by law they have to handle it. So somebody with a dementia doesn't matter. Whatever happened to compassion? And this is ridiculous. They've always got an excuse. When my neighbours were breaking the law and I couldn't get in or out of my street, they told me they wouldn't do anything because I had a private street. I pay taxes the same as everybody else, but they told me they wouldn't do anything. So something needs doing about this. I've also found out that one can get a bracelet for these people to wear, and if they get lost, it starts to beep. And I think that is something that perhaps should be put in the water bill to advise people that have memory problems. I mean, I've got a memory problem, but I still know what my car looks like, you know. Fortunately, his wife found him an hour and 45 minutes later. And so it was a happy ending. But I would have had to have taken the man home. The police weren't interested. If I'd have taken him to the hospital, they'd have probably said he's not sick. I mean, what does one do with these kind of things if the police aren't interested? I think it's a disgrace. It needs handling.
Thank you, Hazel. Thank you. Is there anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for council comments and requests. Would you like to start, Ms. Jameson?
I'm going to take a line out of Neil's greeting. I'm so glad to see all of you here. Now, you can't say that, Neil. I'm just so surprised that so many people came on Friday evening. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the fact that people have come to every one of these meetings regarding the vacancy. It shows interest and it shows a spirit in Solvang, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Toussaint?
None at this time.
Mr. Zimmerman?
I'm surprised I made it to this meeting. I'm still trying to figure out what's on the agenda here. I'm kidding. I have one request, and that is to review the protocol and the guidelines of this part of our city ordinances or whatever it's considered.
I think that'll probably be one of the early things we do when we get a full council.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
I have no comments. Correspondence received by City Council, we have none. Approval of the agenda as presented, we only have one item. So we go to the regular agenda. The City Council vacancy, we read the item, please.
Item 5, City Council vacancy.
Staff report.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, as you're aware, Councilmember Deuce resigned on August 28th of this year, and the government code gives you 60 days to either appoint a new person or go to a special election. You've heard the 3 options before. I did in your staff report add a proposed plan if you were to choose the application process, just because we're getting down to the tighter timeline. And that just would be a suggestion, is if you were to call for applications tonight, and then you would take applications or letter of interest until October 17th. That would allow you to get them in the October 23rd council packet. And then you could have the interviews and selections at that October 23rd meeting. And that would give you 4 days, if you weren't able to make that, to have additional special meetings. So I did just put that timeline in there, just as you know, the 60-day clock is running. So other than that, I think the council knows their options that they have, and you've heard my staff report multiple times. So if there's any questions.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
I just wish to make a motion, please.
I'm sorry?
I wish to make a motion. You can take a motion anytime.
You can.
Okay. Okay, I wish to make a motion that we appoint Karen Waite to the vacancy created by Hans Deuce.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll go to the audience for comment before we vote on it. I have 12 speaker slips. And at 5 minutes apiece, I think that's close to an hour. So I'm going to ask that you keep your time to 1 minute, if at all possible. The buzzer will go off at 3 minutes, but I want you to at least try to limit your comments to 1 minute. And if you could, you might want to indicate to us whether you prefer appointment by the protocol, appointment by application, or appointment by special election. That would help us to understand everything, notwithstanding the motion that's on the table. So first on the first call is Hans Deuce, followed by Nancy Orchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. I'm Hans Deuce, resident of Santa Maria, and Solvang is my home. I applaud the council for sticking in here and making tough decisions. This is what it's all about. And taking a long view on things, a very long view. That's important. I was in a very similar situation, my first council meeting, my first 3 council meetings, dealing with a vacancy, that I wanted to go a different direction. I changed my vote, and for several reasons. But I got a great benefit out of it. The person I opposed became a very big influence in my time on the dais. He became a person that I respected very much. He also became a mentor to me. I learned a lot from him. And now I'm happy to say that Ken Palmer is a very good friend of mine. So there is, this is looking at a long picture, and that's what I think we need to do here, is look at this long picture and for success of the council, and I think this council is capable of it. So Godspeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Orchard, followed by John Orchard.
Good evening, council. Good evening, fellow residents. If I could vote tonight, I would vote for a special election. And you probably ask why. Because I would always be the council person that would want to save money for the city. But I'll tell you why. A lot has happened in the last year since our last election. We lost Mr. Deuce, but other things on the dais have happened. We're talking about annexation now. We have some serious water issues with water rates and problems with accounting. So today isn't what it was a year ago. I would like to hear what candidates today have to say about what is facing us today. So that is my primary reason for wishing for an election. The second one is the city could get in another bind in 4 years when 4 council members come up for election. It throws off the way that we established how the 2 and the 3 and how we were going to change seats and have people run for office. The last thing I have to say is that I hear all this about protocol being law. Protocol is not law. One council cannot mandate another council to do a certain thing if it is not comport with California and federal law. Protocol is not that. This was made years ago and may or may not, in fact, apply to the situation today, nor to those serving us. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. For added information, the next election, should there be should it be appointee in 2018, will be for 1 2-year seat and 2 4-year seats. That's the completion of Mr. Deuce's 4-year term. So there will be 4 seats open: the mayor, a 2-year term, and a 2 4-year terms. So that makes the cycle go back into effect. John Orchard, followed by Hank Homburg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm John Orchard. I live at 1920 Old Mill Road. I've been watching these meetings, these past few meetings, where the special interest group has filled the chamber, and they're here tonight, I think, too. It's been clear they have one person that they want appointed. It's also clear that there are 2 members of this council who want the same person. The special interest group is not new. They have bought and paid for at least 3 members for as long as I've lived here, which is almost 40 years. And they make sure they get a supporting city staff. But there's a larger interest group that has not been heard. That's the Solvang residents. They mostly trust the council to protect them and to provide utilities. But an earlier council failed the residents when they voted for state water. And in doing so, they obligated the 5,100 people or so of this city to a water bond issue bill of roughly $100 million. Even then, though, the water bills were based only upon the cost of the water and the cost to deliver that water. It was an enterprise fund. Today, however, 2 members of this council, along with Mr. Deuce and the staff, have allowed a much higher water bill, a water rate, to be placed on the backs of our residents, because they've added the charges, or they've raised the water bill to raise revenues to support the city staff, wages and pensions. It's no longer an enterprise fund. As a result, we are paying much higher water bills than we should, and the special interests here are actually paying less than they should. It looks like to me it's time to reawaken the Solvang Residents Association. Thank you.
Hank Homburg, followed by Greg Milner. Greg Milliken, I'm sorry, I had my glasses off.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. I'm standing up here just for common sense purposes. Common sense fiscally and common sense meaning 4 votes. So I'm obviously going to keep it short, but I'm in favor of Ms. Waite. I don't know who she is, but I guess she's here. Is that her? That she should be sitting up there. So 4 votes to me is pretty darn close and seems like common sense. And fiscally, is not just fiscally, but man-hours wise, to have a special election would be just absolutely ridiculous with a 4-vote difference. So anyway, I'm hoping that we can all play in the sandbox together and we get this thing going and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Milner, followed by Patrick Kavanaugh.
Good evening. I'm Greg Milliken. Council members and staff and fellow neighbors. My wife and I moved here. We live at 1227 Hans Park Trail up in Skit Mesa. We moved here in April of 2016 from Pasadena, where we had lived for 20 years and were active in civic matters there. I am here just to say that a 4-member board is unable to make the kind of decisions in the kind of time frame that are needed in order to keep the city going in lots of things. For example, for those of us in Skit Mesa, we're working on traffic issues. And so there may be things that would come to the council that will need to be decided, and whether they're decided the way we or some residents or other residents would want them, at least they'll be decided with a 5-member board in a timely way. And if we're not happy with the outcome, well, then we'll have the elections to unelect those who we're not happy with and to elect others that we would like to have. Whether it's a direct appointment of Ms. Waite or whether it's an appointment prior to the deadline on October 28th, I'd love to see the council go ahead and reinstate a 5-member functioning council, however it turns out. And we've taken the time to find out about the city, knowing we're moving into a 5,000 resident city from a 140,000 resident city with lots of problems and good governance of its own. So we're glad to take part. For us as new residents in a new area, the important thing to us is that is not at this point to do referendums on past things, but to get the council up and running in full order, and we can deal with the other issues. In my view, we can deal with the other issues as is appropriate. So I'd hope that by October 28th, either we have a 5th member appointed by the application process or Ms. Wade is brought in, but one of those two, and not an extended period of time and cost to elect somebody else. Thank you.
Greg, when you have a free moment, I would encourage you to consider a council or a commission position when one becomes open if you want to be active in the city. And I would encourage that because of your past history.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Kavanaugh, followed by Sheila Benedict.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I am Patrick Kavanaugh, and I am a resident of Solvang. I spoke last time and was interested in obviously in the discussion, disappointed in the split, but I think there was an opportunity that was presented last year that aligns with what I think is a reasonable approach, and it aligns with the predecessor as well. I think we only have 3 weeks between now and when we're going to be forced to have an election. And I think spending the time between now and April 10th to have an election would do great damage to this city, particularly when it's facing the kind of issues that were articulated earlier that really have to be addressed and addressed with a full city council. And so I'm in favor of an appointment as provided by this California statute rather than an election. And I really prefer an appointment today, as soon as possible, so this city council can get underway. At the last meeting, Councilmember Zimmerman actually came up with a proposal that was appealing to me. As I understand it, he actually amended a motion by Councilmember Jameson in supporting Mrs. Waite, but also suggesting that the protocol that we're hung up on be set aside. And it seems to me that if we had taken that, then, I mean, that would have kind of cleared the air, because I think the city council had already agreed, and Ms. Jameson agreed as well, and actually, I think, initiated the review by the city council of the protocol package and all of the policies that we have, and explicitly included the protocol regarding filling vacancies in that. So I think, you know, if I'm not sure how the motion that's on the table will proceed, but if it's possible, it would be great to see that motion again with the amendment that Councilmember Zimmerman suggested, and we approve it. Set aside the protocol for now, because you're going to have 5 members of the council then, if that passed, 5 members of the council considering the important work that Councilwoman Jameson and others on the council indicated would be necessary and important business to take up. So I urge you to appoint Karen Waite tonight and get on with the business of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
I did not include protocol in my motion.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Sheila Benedict, followed by Lee Rosenberg.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I will stick to 1 minute. I'm running a hole in the rug coming back and forth every time. Whether you go with the protocol or put it aside, as the gentleman before me said, whatever you do, appoint Karen Waite and let's get the business of the council back on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Rosenberg, followed by Richard Christensen.
I'll take my full 5 minutes. As Mr. Zimmerman explained last Tuesday, he and I had a 10-minute, not 45 minutes, as he tells it, conversation by phone about 2 weeks ago. He explained he's blocking the protocol because he feels, and I'm quoting, government should not choose the people's representatives. Last Tuesday, his muddled explanation did not follow this reasoning. His suggestions thus far all require the governing body to choose. Consider application, interview, or choosing from one or more of the city commissions. In each case, the governing body will choose, not voters. Perhaps he's unaware that the Constitution provides succession guidance: President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, Senate President pro tempore, then to cabinet members. The protocol is the only succession guidance we have here. Mr. Zimmerman approved the protocol twice. Tuesday, he explained that he did not understand the protocol when he voted. My grandfather, 57 years ago, warned me that to do something stupid once might be excusable, but if you do the same thing twice, you're a fool.
Please.
Thus, I asked Mr. Zimmerman to provide a clear and concise rational basis for his position. I also asked Mr. Toussaint for his rational basis, clear and concise. As an ex parte inquiry, I asked Messrs. Toussaint and/or Zimmerman if they've had communication by any means about this issue with Fred Koval, Lana Clark, Brian Cheney, or Chris DeJerna, who appears to want the vacant seat himself and has not yet appeared with the 1,000 signature petition he promised. This inquiry is temporarily in lieu of my request for the Public Records Act recall of your smartphones and laptop, which parenthetically I notice are not present as they were 2 meetings ago. You appear to be gophers looking for a hole to jump in. Don't let third parties influence your decision. Unless you've been asleep during public comment, you should approve the succession protocol as requested by the large majority of citizens and save the city the time and the cost of a special election. If you're fiscally responsible, as you've advertised, save the $30,000 and wait for the June election.
Thank you. Richard Christensen, followed by June Christensen.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm Dick Christensen. I've been a resident here forever. And after listening to the emotional dialogue that's gone on for the last number of weeks here, and before I forget, I wanted to compliment our mayor for handling that dialogue very well. That was a tough job, and you did it well. After I kind of worked through the emotional aspects of what I heard, I decided to take an intellectual approach to this. So what I'm doing is I'm addressing the members of this council, and in addition, any members that may come before you, and after you, rather. We all have strong personal convictions. This is a very good trait, and generally very honorable. However, when these personal convictions stand in the way and in direct opposition to the voters who elected you and to which you took an honorable pledge to serve, why then, as council members who are opposing, you must stand down and not vote on the issue. For to do so would be a violation of the good faith to the community that you were elected to serve. Secondly, and of equal importance, when a council person is elected, I've been on many boards, they have an obligation, they have a duty to acquaint themselves with board policies, board procedures, and board protocol. If during this required review there occurs matters and items that you find not comparable with your own standards, then you are under an obligation to bring the matter to the board for discussion, ratification, or change. Thus, the discussions and solutions of the current incomprehensible, and incompatible board member replacement must occur prior to the occurrence and not at the time of the vacancy. It makes no sense to do it after the fact. If you choose to do it, again, it's a violation of good faith. And frankly, it's a blindside into the community. And I choose that word carefully. You were elected to serve. Thus, once again, this board member with that kind of lack of knowledge must stand down and not vote the issue. In view of what I said, this brilliant young lady should be appointed, and you should vote the protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And next, let me welcome June Christensen, a former mayor of the city of Solvang, followed by Susan Williams.
I see you have new carpet. It's nice.
Well, we're going to get new if Sheila keeps running back and forth, you know.
It was the stuff here was old in the 80s when I was on the council. So I wrote a letter to each of the council members and a copy to the Valley News. However, the contents of the letters were not read, so the public didn't get some of the information that I thought they should have. And I have several concerns, one of which is the fact that appointment made by the council members stands in election, where the residents of the city get to know prospective council members is not advantageous to the residents. There's no reason why any of the people who would like to apply for this position, sorry, I've lost 4.5 inches. There's no reason why any of the people who are interested in being on the council cannot run at the next election. And as you know, those elections are coming up soon. So when you make an appointment, the presidents have no way of knowing what the philosophy and political stands of the majority on the council are. And I don't think that's fair to the city. The policy and procedures that you followed, and which all but one of you voted for, should allow for the next highest vote getter, in this case, Karen Waite. Voters have an opportunity to know where she stands on local issues because she went through the election process. There are no alliances with persons that currently are not on the council, and we can expect her to vote for the best options for the city and its residents. In addition, the city's been commenting on the lack of funding for various projects, several of them. A new election, which would be months off, would not coincide with the county election, and the cost would be quite high. A mail-in ballot might be an option at a lower cost. However, if the election process went forward, the cost could be as high as $28,000. I think I had 30 in my letter because that's what I was informed, but now I see that talking about 28,000. This cost, in addition to the $600 per month salary, would work out to approximately $4,800 for salaries for approximately 8 months remaining to the end of the year. When you're having a shortage and when your employees are very dissatisfied with the lack of salary increases for the extended period that they have not been paid, have not again gotten an increase, the council themselves advises they do not have financial resources with which to meet payroll increases. Well, this would be one small way of trying to meet some of those deficits. I served as a council mayor and member during the 1980s and understand the complexities of council decisions and duties. I resigned from my position when I was advised that if I did not vote for certain issues in favor of a group, that my personal finances would be affected. From that point, I realized that whether I voted for or against an issue, my reasons for doing so would be suspect. Therefore, I resigned rather than be put in a compromising position. Each council member must review the reasons they are serving and whether their decisions are their own volition or of a select few have a financial or other gain. I recommend appointing Karen Waite and that you do that as soon as possible in order to get on with your business. And thank you.
Thank you, June. I was neglectable. Nancy Orchard, also, I have to commend, was a former council person and mayor of the city. Susan Williams, followed by Muffy Katzberg.
Good evening, Mayor Richardson and City Council members. First of all, I would just like to commend you for sitting up there. I know you have a tough job. Mayor Richardson, I would like to compliment you on the way you've kept order in these proceedings.
Thank you.
When I've spoken earlier on this issue, I was very careful to state that I wanted the protocol followed. I was very glad to hear the motion that Ms. Jamieson, Councilmember Jamieson, brought up today. And I was actually going to suggest that when I came up here tonight, so that's been taken care of. I would like to make it clear that although I voted for Ms. Waite, I'm not a friend or a relative. I don't have any special interest. I think she is the most qualified person for the job, and her comments at the candidates forum convinced me to vote for her. So I'm really hoping that this motion passes and that you can get on with the business that you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Muffy Katzberg, followed by Hazel Mortensen.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman and staff and neighbors, for again coming so soon to a special meeting. I support the appointment by the protocol. If this protocol is replaced by appointment by another whom the council persons interview, what guarantee do the citizens have that you can all agree on that? Can someone, staff or the gentleman who proposed it, the selection of applicants from existing commissions, please provide the community the names of those people on those commissions who might be interested in running? It seems reasonable to poll them to find out if there are any members who are interested in doing that. We're making a decision or being asked to view or see you make a decision of whether to use that option. And I think it's, we don't know if any of those people are interested in doing so. Or we'd like to know the slate of those people that you would be making that choice from. I think it'd be very helpful. Is it unreasonable for us here tonight and people at home to know who among the people in the audience are interested in applying for this position? I think it would be very helpful in our decision making to know and hear them speak It's just one more way for us to decide whether or not we wish to pursue what seems the most economical and reasonable thing to pursue that has been before this council and the councils before them and approved prior. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The last speaker slip is Hazel Mortensen.
Good evening, council members. My name is Hazel Mortensen, and unlike many speakers at the last meeting, I am a ratepayer in Solvang. I believe we should require speakers to state whether they are too. In my opinion, the one who is the cause of all this animosity is Hans Duus. He is the one who ran for re-election knowing full well that he had financial problems with his house and he would need to move to Santa Maria. He must have known he would need to vacate his seat. After the election, Hans did his best to put Ryan down. He said Ryan had a lot to learn and the council would need to teach Ryan a thing or two. I have walked past Ryan's house and it is lovely. I'm sure his neighbours have higher property values due to his pride in ownership. Not like some who allow their house to become an eyesore and to hell with their neighbours' property values. What does Hans and the other council members have to teach a young man who appears to have made it in life at age 29? There must be some jealousy around. Regards Mrs. Waite, she told the press that she is entitled to be on the council. And regarding her qualifications, I believe she's far too overqualified and perhaps she should run for president, but not in this town. I don't like bad losers, and I don't like people who think they are entitled. I believe I am entitled to an honest government, but I don't hold my breath. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other speaker slips. Does anyone else wish to speak? Please come forward. Identify yourself.
I'm wearing yellow.
I got you. I know who you are. You yellow-skinned devil, you.
You know, you gotta do it. My name is Kathleen Campbell. I am a property owner. I was a former business owner in this community, and I am a ratepayer for Hazel's benefit. But most proudly, I am Willie Campbell's daughter. And I came tonight to tell each of you that while I may disagree with you on various and sundry matters, I know that these last two meetings have been quite difficult, and that you all are looking based on your conviction at something. We can all interpret it right or wrong, but I want to thank you all for still being open-minded, because I think it's the right solution. And I went back home and I thought, well, what would Willie want at the end of these two meetings? And what Willie would have wanted was for you to find compromise and, if possible, work together. So what I would like to see is two things. I would like you to follow the protocol now and appoint Karen Waite. I would also like you to take the protocol back up in light of the fact that between when Ken Palmer and many of us and many of you on the dais went through changes that were not caused by elections, many circumstances have come up since the council, in their best judgment at the time in 2009, came up with the best protocol they could. But now we have circumstances let us see that there are different ways of going about this and different circumstances. My recommendation would be that you take up the protocol, and when you do, I'd like you to look at potentially a solution that says the protocol appoints a person from the election through a period of time, like 90 days or 120 days from the election. And then after that point in time, you take open applications and consider that. I'd like you to think about amending the protocol in light of all the circumstances that have come up and make it better. It's kind of like, everybody's going to laugh at me about this, it's kind of like Obamacare. We're going to throw the whole thing out, or we're going to see what worked and figure out a way to improve it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anyone else wish to speak? Please, that's Chris, isn't it? Yeah.
Long name, difficult name. Chris Dearness, Solvang resident. Thank you again for the hard work you guys are doing. I know this is a tough job. It's a tough process. It's not fun. You make a lot of enemies with this kind of a process. I am a resident here, and I'm for following the state code. I think it was very clear. You use the appointment process or you use the election. It's very simple. The protocol, as much as people have taken the time to defend it, and I appreciate their arguments, I think that's more of a coronation, and I think that's wrong. So I think the fairest and the simplest way to make this happen would have been to use the state code. Secondly, I think it does a disservice if we follow the protocol, because the citizens, the residents of Solvang, the taxpayers, they have a right to know who's going to sit there and what their views are. And as Ms. Orchard had said, she and her husband, I should say, they did a great job of pointing out the fact that things have changed, and what they talked about with respect to issues of annexation and water issues, those are all important issues that we need to know with respect to the council person, where they stand on those issues. And I think Karen Waite has not done that. She's said a lot about who she is and how wonderful she is, and I'm sure she's a great person, but I don't know where she stands other than she said, I'm for transparency and I'm for tourism. Well, I think everybody is, right? I mean, I don't know anybody who would be against transparency. And then finally, as far as the cost is concerned, these doors cost more than the election's going to cost. And we know that because we have the PO or the invoices for it. So the idea that we can't afford a special election, I don't know, I think that's just wrong. And then also I wanted to make one last comment, and that's with respect to some of the thuggish behavior, some of the smears and slanders that I've heard over the course of the last month. I mean, this is supposed to be a civil discourse. It's supposed to be a way to engage everybody and bring everybody into this discussion and hear what they have to say. And instead, I've seen and heard some of the stupidest things, just out and out lies. I mean, Hans Deuce was kind enough to send me a smear letter via email. I didn't say anything at the time because I just dismissed it as being stupid. But I mean, what purpose does that serve? It causes people to run away instead of engage in the civic process. And then what Mr. Is it Rosenberg?
Yeah, right.
I'm so sorry, but I disagree with you.
Please, excuse, Chris, direct your comments, direct your comments to the council,
I will.
please.
So his threat with respect to Mr. Toussaint, and he actually uses me as an example of somebody who might somehow inadvertently, illegally influence the council members. This is bizarre. We have a right to engage with all of you. We have a right to share our opinions with all of you without fear of a lawsuit. I mean, this is bizarre. If he's the one supporting Karen Waite, then I can't support Karen Waite for that reason alone. So having said that, I'm just disappointed. I think we could have done a better job as a community, and I think we should have done a better job as a council to get everybody involved in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Lee, you had your time. Ed Skip? Former council person Ed Skip.
Ed Skip, citizen of Solvang. Just a couple comments. One referred to, Mr. Orchard referred to a group of a special interest group trying to put an individual on the city council. I don't know any special interest group. The only special interest group I know is the citizens of Solvang. There were a group of citizens, I believe 1,263 citizens, who voted for Ms. Waite in the last November election, which was just shy of 11 months ago. In regards to Mr. Deuce's financial misfortune that Hazel brought up, that has absolutely nothing to do with the situation. And Hazel should be ashamed of herself for bringing this up, but it has nothing to do with it. Mr. Deuce did his best to maintain his position on the city council. How somebody keeps their front of their house has nothing to do with their qualifications on a city council.
we have a set of protocols. I agree with Ms. Campbell and Mr. Christensen. The time to discuss the protocols was before that ever came up. If somebody did not like the way they were, they should have brought them up prior. I agree that we should go with the current protocols, place Ms. Waite on the city council, and at the earliest meeting, it's probably too late to put it on the agenda for Monday's meeting, but I would say on the following meeting, have a full discussion on the protocols and set it up, and instead of having a protocol, possibly set up as a codified city ordinance, if that's what you are going to do. A city ordinance is something that is not changed unless the city council wants to change it. But right now, I feel we need to have 5 people on the city council. Otherwise, we are going to have a loggerheads. And as somebody mentioned, if we go on an appointment situation, what happens if we have a 2-2 vote all the way through on an appointment? We do not have anything in our protocols to do that, to correct that. That would be something to put into the new protocols. But anyway, I feel that at this point in time, the city should follow the protocols, place Ms. Waite on the city council, and then address the whole situation of protocols. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Last chance? Okay, we'll close this and come back to the council for action or discussion or both. There's a motion on the floor right now. Would you please read the motion?
Motion to appoint Karen Waite, made by Councilmember Jameson, seconded by Councilmember Toussaint.
We're ready to vote. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Jameson?
Yes.
Toussaint?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
With some comments, and that being, just to clear my position on where we started this journey and where I am now with it. I still firmly believe that the runner-up of an election a year later isn't a good policy. It's not a good protocol. I think the fairest thing is some type of election, or I mean a special election, and then viewing in the middle of the other bodies of government and how they do it. They do pick from within commissions or councils or whatever, or it's some transfer of an inner body. So I mean that's where I started to see, okay, I'm okay with that, but I agree with Skit where whatever it is that we come up with, we make it an ordinance, so it's not a questionable thing, because that's part of the issue I have with the protocol. It's like, we can do the protocol when we want to do the protocol. So if we like you, we'll do the protocol, and if we don't, we'll do something else. So I'm coming from a place of true fairness and freedom and power to the people and rights, not on a whim make a decision and flip-flop when we want to flip-flop. So if we can resolve that, that's my issue. And it's never been anything personal or anything like this. So I guess with that being said,
let me give you something. You can say yes, you can say no, or you can abstain.
Yeah. I see. So I support Karen Waite, but I abstain.
Mayor Richardson?
Yes. That passes with a 3-0 and 1 abstention. Right now, we're prepared to swear in Miss Waite right now. So would you please come up, and with the city clerk.
Constitution of
would you like to make a comment?
I would like to thank you all for your support, and I would like you all to have full faith in knowing that I will do the best job I possibly can on this council, and thank you again.
Are there any other comments from the dais?
I look forward to developing a positive working relationship with you. So.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'm glad I'm not the only female up here anymore.
That means trouble, I think. And I do want to thank the public for being here and for participating in this process. It's a difficult one for all of us, you included, and we appreciate the comments. They're enlightening and they're very helpful. So I hope we don't have to go through this again, but if we do, we're ready for you guys. So so please, thank you again, and go and have a good Friday night. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.